Jez Cordon writes a take on Satya Nadella's comments about Microsoft not necessarily competing with another console, but actually competing with short form videos such as TikTok, maybe even YouTube Shorts, and possibly Instagram Reels or whatever it is. And Jez Cordon's take is actually very interesting. The way he prefaces it is, in my opinion, very click worthy, number one. And number two, when he gives his reason, I'm like, I'm not certain that your reason is even sufficient enough, because the reality is Xbox is not even competing with PlayStation. And all this while, we didn't necessarily realize that this is the major reason that I would say those who like to talk on gaming, maybe I'll call them PlayStation fanboys or Xbox detractors, are very much ignorant the way that they're talking about Xbox in their, I would say their perception about the business, that they can't even fathom that Xbox has already left PlayStation in the dust when it comes to this. Even when PlayStation said that Xbox has already left them in the dust, these so-called fanatics, or I guess I would say that's what they kind of are, can still seem to kind of get it in their minds. As, PlayStation concluded that the thing that makes their pillars already dated and behind the competition is Xbox's capability to supply a multi-game, and multifaceted paradigm. 50% is what they called it at the time to console, 50% games to subscription, and 60% on PC. So when these cats start insulting, say, Magnum of Orc for posting this thing that he sees on his own Xbox store, this is the Xbox ROG Ally and the ROG Xbox Ally X, as consoles, right? They basically can't fathom what's going on because they're still in the dark, or they refuse to actually see what is going on here. I'm going to look at Jez Cordon's article real briefly. I want to go ahead and take a very quick peek at it because a lot of what he says here, I think is very interesting. So Jez writes and says, Microsoft CEO compared Xbox to TikTok and the internet is confused for the wrong reason. Here's why. Now, I am not confused. In my opinion anyways, I've seen the data that actually drives this, and the data made sense to me. So he says, Xbox is in a period of transition. I know. He says, as it struggles to find a strong footing in the post-Xbox console era. Now, here's the thing. Xbox is not in a post-Xbox console era. Xbox has been adding to its console business for about 7 or 8 years now. This is where I think a lot of people are very mistaken, and it has me jump back to this post by Magnum of Orc. He said the ROG Xbox Ally PC handheld in the store, in the hardware section next to Xbox consoles and accessories. It is indeed now an Xbox. He also goes ahead and posits this, but this user says by your and insults him logic, this is also an Xbox and points to a headset. But a lot of these people don't realize that when PlayStation found out that Xbox was going to buy the biggest publisher that had been supporting their platform, to then take over that publisher's own PC platform, merge it with their own Xbox platform, that Xbox had already pretty much bludgeoned them and crippled them. I said this, and a content creator who is a pundit on the PlayStation side asked me and said, how did they go ahead and cripple PlayStation? To which I did not respond to him because he still owes his community an apology for October the 4th and 11th FUD that was spread about Xbox leaving the hardware market, only for Xbox to then dump 2 hardware pieces, not a console refresh, but 2 partnered handheld pieces into the market. And so this is where I already find and struggle to kind of say, Jez, where is the post-Xbox console era when they are making another generation of consoles? They've already launched a partnered handheld console PC, or maybe people are translating their addition, or I guess I would say extension into PC, which they've been doing for 6 to 7 to 8 years, by the way, as a post-Xbox console era, which is a mischaracterization of what's going on. You said the console wars are over, declared GameStop and the White House, with Xbox thoroughly trounced by PlayStation and Nintendo back in the Xbox One and PS4 era. But Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella isn't doom and gloom about Xbox's platform future, at least not yet. In comments just yesterday, this was actually a few days ago when Jez would have written this article, Nadella said he was looking forward to the next Xbox console. although he oddly avoided the word Xbox throughout the interview. Now, here's a very interesting thing about what people are saying, that he didn't say Xbox. This is a fanatical statement in terms of that. Why? Because Xbox already understands that its ecosystem, right, spans more than just a console. The word Xbox right now stands for console, stands for PC, handheld console right now, stands for application, PC application, stands for TV OS applications, stands for browser applications, stands for mobile. This is why PlayStation, again, and I bring this up over and over again, determined that Microsoft can supply multi-game subscription 50%, console 50%, PC 60%. By the way, this is one of the slides that leaked from Insomniac in 2023. And with this particular paradigm, being able to supply multi-game, they also realized that Microsoft would be able to get its foot into mobile. And so now your phone has an Xbox app. So when the word Xbox is thrown out, Satya Nadella understands, it's the company that he runs, that that's not going to simply mean the Xbox Series S or the Xbox Series X consoles. So this particular connotation that he missed this, or he somehow purposefully didn't say anything or not using the word Xbox throughout the interview, is weird, because I don't know what other console Satya Nadella's company makes. Anyways, he seemingly confirmed our report that the next Xbox will be more PC-like than ever, touting Windows as the world's biggest gaming business. He omitted the vast majority of platforms. Whoops, I just went ahead and threw that out there. Building on Windows, openness doesn't actually send a dime in revenue back to Microsoft. Well, in fairness, I listened to that interview, and he said Steam has built a viable business on there, which would, indicate, or I guess I would say imply, that that revenue is Steam's revenue and Steam's business. Again, I want to go ahead and preface this particular thinking process that you need to make money in every single enterprise that you actually put your hand in directly, not realizing the indirect methodologies that you can use to also make money. Let me break this down real quick. And this is one of those videos that we're going to have to take our time and kind of walk through. Microsoft understands that if it gives value, the value in turn goes around and brings it revenue that many of us can't necessarily go ahead and wrap our minds around. For instance, you can download Windows 11. I'm sure at some point you can download Windows 10 if you wanted. And you can install it on your computer. And technically, yes, you have to get a Windows 10 key. However, you can continue using that Windows operating system without having to get yourself a Windows license immediately. That single value proposition does not earn Microsoft a single dime. Do you know that? But it's been a thing for a number of years. What's interesting is no one has ever said anything about this. However, when you install that Windows operating system, Microsoft has the opportunity to market one of many of its other products to you, which one day you'll find yourself using. For instance, the funny part is Microsoft Teams. I never cared about Microsoft Teams. To be honest, I never used it. And then one time I get invited to a fellowship to work, a specific timeline as a professional with another, tech company. And behold, within that company, they only use Teams as their internal communication methodology, and all of their apps are Microsoft apps. So guess who had to activate Teams on their Windows device? Yours truly. Another proposition, another possibility, Microsoft Word, Microsoft Office. All of the different Microsoft products that are designed to meet different people at their own specific needs can be leveraged by them. If you buy yourself a copy of Microsoft Office, you'll spend money. Yes, you can still buy a full license. I know people think you only have to subscribe to Office 365. Dig into the website. You'll find your one-time license. Or you can subscribe to Office 365 and leverage that. Or you can use their browser and they will show you ads. Or they will collect your information and farm it and go sell somewhere else. This thing that people are talking about that, oh, they've not made any money directly from Steam is quite funny because at the end of the day, I don't think they're really interested. They even went ahead and made their store kind of open where they're not even collecting money from anybody anymore. They just open up their store. But how are they going to make money? That's something that they've already figured out, that adding the value is what's going to make them money. So if they bring that same proposition to the Xbox console, and people are over there sitting and saying that they're not making money directly from Steam or from Good Old Games or whatever, that is actually small-minded thinking, to be very honest, as Microsoft understands that it goes for the big picture at the end of the day and has implemented the big picture successfully over years. Because I guarantee you, a lot of these people have used a complementary Windows key that did not require a license at any moment in time, right? Over the years. And then they never thought about it then, but now because it's Xbox, it seems like everybody wants to think about it. That one paragraph, Jez, that you wrote really does inspire that you go back and review that piece of Xbox or Microsoft's business as they want to implement it to Xbox. So, you said, but hey, Nadella has other competitors in mind, apparently. Nadella echoed comments from the PlayStation alumni Sean Layden and also Microsoft's own Matt Booty that the primary competitor against the gaming industry are addictive short-form video feeds such as TikTok and Instagram Reels. Commentators had thoughts about the statement, mostly negative thoughts. It felt as though Microsoft was deflecting its inability to compete directly with PlayStation and Steam, blaming scapegoats instead. Now, Jez Cordon, and everybody in the gaming press and gaming media, I gotta tell you all that many of you, for some strange reason, have forgotten that Microsoft's business is also on the exact same platform that TikTok and short-form video thrives on. The phones. Did y'all forget that Microsoft already has cloud capabilities that actually allow for you to be able to access significant portions of your Xbox library on your phone, even more than many other services out there, like, say, Nintendo? I'm not talking about taking a handheld device with you. I'm not talking about taking an external console with you or going home and having to choose between both of them. In fact, in this case, I'm not even talking about the overlap where those of us that game on PC that love to dual monitor can have one thing of Twitter, one thing of freaking YouTube on the next tab and be gaming. I'm simply talking about the exact same device like your mobile phone. Some of you have been telling me in the comment section that you game at work during your lunch. Sometimes you don't have enough time to game, even though you know that you can get in a little bit of game time. You just sometimes settle for a short video or two. I remember when I was playing Elden Ring, one of the fun parts of Elden Ring was that dragon farm. Remember that dragon farm where we'd go out there and we'd basically off that dragon and quickly, fast travel so that we could get the, the runes and then quickly go back again to the side of grace. Or the little bird farm where you could go and shoot that bird and the bird would basically, you trigger the bird, aggro it, and it would jump off the cliff and then you get the runes and reset over and over and over again, right? You could get some of that time in if, say, you had a device. Now, at the time, I was playing on PC. So, thankfully, I took one of my crappy laptops with me to work. And when it was lunchtime, when it was lunchtime, I'd just go ahead and log in and farm those birds for runes if I wasn't busy. I'm usually working through lunch anyways. I'm so busy, every day. But, man, that game was insane. And I'd just be like, oh my gosh, it's lunch break. And it was a very short lunch break. I could only get about 10 minutes in. But you know how many of that bird farms you could get? This is what people are forgetting. That if you can actually get into small, tiny little gaming sessions like that on the same device that TikTok is dominant on, Microsoft is actually competing against them on the same device. This is not a matter of PlayStation. They're not competing with PlayStation on those devices, as PlayStation has already, like I started this video out, gone ahead to conclude that because of their capability to supply multi-game via subscription, which would include cloud, with Game Pass and all of the above, they've now literally entered the realm of competition with TikTok. And I think for some strange reason, a lot of people miss this particular piece. Maybe it's because we are not necessarily all gaming on these small handheld, mobile phone devices, and we prefer the handheld. We prefer the old school classic way of gaming. These handhelds appeal to the millennial and the Gen Xer, much more than it would appeal to a lot of other of these kids. Why? Because we played on the Game Boy Advance, the Game Boy Color. That's handhelds was kind of a thing for us. Some of you played those little, Tetris type module games, the very simple games. We used to call it the brick game back in the day. That's what we called it when I was growing up in Nigeria, right? And so when you think about all of this stuff, you got to understand that this business of Microsoft is so dynamic that when people start looking at that, they're very, very, they're very confused. They don't even see Xbox's business on a cell phone. They're just making fun of Xbox. This is an Xbox. I guess my, fridge is an Xbox. I guess my this, but not paying attention that Xbox has already pretty much embedded itself in every single possible place that you can game. And so now it really is competing for time with TikTok. So these creators are now getting the memo. What kinds of games should we make? Has anybody noticed Ninja Gaiden's chapter structure? How the chapters are actually quite short and the save points are actually quite closer, and the little markers where you meet a, like a small cutscene. The game is fast-paced, but the game has like chunks. Are you noticing that developers are chunking their games more now? Are y'all paying attention? I'm just wondering, like, is anybody even following this trend? They're chunking their games. They're making their games where you can get in there for a few minutes and play a little bit. And then that's where Xboxes Play Anywhere and cloud save technology comes into play. My dude, excuse me, they have simply bodied PlayStation. Are you paying attention? That's why PlayStation, even they themselves look at the remote control and said they were going to enhance its capabilities from being just a remote control to being a streaming device. And you can also stream on your PlayStation console as well. But you don't necessarily have as much flexibility, if you get what I mean, because now the person that's on their laptop, who doesn't want to bring out their phone, what also do they have access to? They have access to cloud gaming, where they can carry that same progress across the board. Are y'all seeing why TikTok? Are y'all seeing why these social media platforms are actually in Xbox's way? This is, in my opinion, when I look at Xbox's ecosystem from a broad perspective, that's what I see. And that's what actually is there. It's not just what I'm seeing alone, I'm seeing it, but it's there too. We can both see it if we were to both just take a quick look. So Jez says this. He says, my take is slightly different though, and it betrays something we all know and take for granted about Microsoft. He says, does TikTok compete with Xbox? Yes, but that's Microsoft's own fault. It's because Microsoft is painfully uncool. That's very interesting. And Jez's conclusion, it kind of gets me scratching my head like, okay, I can understand cool, and I understand the direction he's trying to point to, but he also needs to understand that I don't think people really care about cool that much. Yes, there is a huge portion of it, don't get me wrong. But there are just so many other people that want to be served that if they fire up their cell phones and they say, you know what, maybe I'm done playing these mobile games. Maybe I want to get, some of my real gaming into, play. What platform can I actually use to get it? They don't care about what's cool. They care about what's persistent. They care about what is available. They care about what gives them access. And that's pretty much it. That's it. And so Jez still confesses. He says obviously, the gaming industry does compete with TikTok and YouTube Shorts and the like. This is why you've started to see games appear in your Netflix app in reverse. Streaming media platforms have grown faster than gaming has. Social media apps like TikTok has grown faster than gaming has. When it comes to choosing what to do in your leisure time, you typically only opt for one hobby at a time, if indeed doom scrolling counts as a hobby. If you search the web, there's a variety of analyses that put social media use anywhere between 2 to 3 hours per person, depending on whose figures you look at. Gaming is generally rewarded at a lower ebb than that, hitting 1 to 2 hours, while simultaneously having a smaller audience, particularly if you separate hyper-casual gaming out of the equation. Ladies and gentlemen, This right here is telling the next big game exactly how to make their game. Is anybody reading this? I mean, can anybody tell me why these games are chunking? Why are they chunking? Progress, frequent saves. Think about it. If not, completion rates are already challenging enough with many a video game. This is one of the reasons you saw Elden Ring has sites of grace almost everywhere, because they wanted to make the game accessible to people. If your game right now is not going to be, and I remember I watched a video by, shout out to DuckDark1985. He said, man, if Microsoft is thinking that TikTok is their competition, I fear what they're going to do to respond to that. It's not just Microsoft that's going to have to do that. It's every single gaming publisher that's going to have to do something to go ahead and, figure that out. And they've been doing it for years. Don't get me wrong. The Division 2, marvel of a game, the way it's actually set up. Remember, compared to the Division 1, guys, if you played the Division franchise and you're listening to this video and you listen to the sound of my voice, do you remember how much Division 1 was kind of not so easy to save at? But Division 2, you have all kinds of places that you can actually, kind of hedge. A control point, a safe house, right? All kinds of fun stuff that's available for you. And believe you me, as they're making a third division game, they're going to make sure these systems are even much more influential in the game. They will chunk these games. They're leveraging all of these things, save points, towers, like Far Cry. All these things now are getting more and more frequent around the maps. You're going to see it where now you can actually go in there and you can play a small session of a game and feel like you made enough progress over your phone, save, put phone away, go back wherever it is that you want to go back, continue. That's exactly what these gaming companies, developers, and everybody are going to have to do to pretty much convince people that, hey, man, in your leisure time, instead of getting on TikTok or YouTube Shorts, you can also get on your game. And it's a big battle for them to fight. That's it. That's it. And so Jez's conclusion says, doom scrolling, Netflix, or traditional core gaming obviously compete for our free time and attention. It's not really an activity you do at work, generally speaking. And in these short hours, you can truly call your own of an evening. The immediacy and ease of access of things like TikTok do seem to be winning out, at least to some degree. Companies are eager to point to forever games like Fortnite, Roblox, and bucking some of these trends. But both of these kind of occupy. I can't read this evening. The same social space as things like TikTok and Instagram Reels, in my view. Fortnite and Roblox are hyper-social, yes, and hyper-cultural in the design and functionality. The throwaway mini-games Roblox is known for could be analogous to the scrollable algorithmic content you find in social media feed, complete with in-game messaging systems and platform-exclusive memes and cultural notes. Man, he is on point right here. Microsoft could and should be offering experiences that align more closely with this. And they will. And they are. They're looking for these kinds of games. These games are making their way into Game Pass. Roblox is obviously on the Xbox platform, but the Xbox platform itself could and should be the vehicle that competes with TikTok AI for the cultural relevancy Satya Nadella seems simultaneously envious and ignorant of. I don't think he's ignorant. I don't think he's ignorant. Many of you think he has to sit there and be the one. He's got to pay people to brief him. Man, boy, if they don't brief him right, boy, they're going to be looking for something else to do. Very, very interesting. And so when you go ahead and think about all of this, and there's a lot more of Jez's article that I would recommend that you go ahead and take some time to, assess and to read, right? It really does give you this, interesting perspective that you have about the different consoles so far. It gives you this perspective that, man, these consoles are literally, right now, a relic. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you got to be able to deliver your games anywhere and everywhere. console exclusivity was already dead. In fact, when I was saying exclusivity is dead, I was saying that like, maybe 2-3 years ago, and then looking at PlayStation's own movement to PC. But man, it was dead the moment these phones were able to get themselves to actually process data very fast, and the moment internet started becoming more and more ubiquitous. I told you guys a story about, some relatives that live in the middle of nowhere that got fiber internet before I did, right? They literally were just chilling in their house one day, and the highway that's close to their house, this big company was running fiber cable, and then they were just knocking on doors saying, "Hey man, we're running fiber cable. Y'all, are you guys down for like getting our internet?" And this relative called me. They were like, "Hey man, you're the tech guy. What's the difference between this internet?" I said, "What company?" When they mentioned the name of the company, I said, "You better not let them take an inch. Let them give you internet immediately." And they were asking me, "What internet should we sign up for?" I said, "Sign up for this one." And I was living in the city, in town. And I didn't get fiber for like another, maybe even 3-4 years before they had to then come dig all that. So you know how how many of you have been through a fiber installation? They rip the roads apart. Their traffic is trash. But they live out nowhere. So they're just literally on the side of the road in a little ditch. They were just running these cables unperturbed, and they got fiber internet. And now somebody wants to come out here and pretend like you need a fat box to play a video game? That hadn't been true since like 2019. Thanks for watching the video, guys. I appreciate you guys' time and audience. Let me hear your thoughts in the comment section. If you made it to the end of this video, thank you so much. I want to try to maybe do one of these every so often. I don't know. Y'all have got to help me out. And just tell me what it is you would love for me to do, and I'll talk to you soon. Peace out.